We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
A very rare and historic move from Washington. Earlier today, top Democrat and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced the opening of a formal impeachment inquiry into President Donald Trump, saying he betrayed his oath of office by seeking help from a foreign power to hurt his Democratic rival, Joe Biden.
2 days after a climate summit failed to deliver game-changing pledges to slash carbon emissions, the United Nations warned Wednesday that global warming is devastating oceans and Earth's frozen spaces in ways that directly threaten a large slice of humanity.
7 members of a Philippine Dragon Boat team were killed when their boat capsized off the island of Boracay as they trained for an international race.
Rescue workers battled to reach people affected by a shallow earthquake that rocked northeast Pakistan, killing at least 25 and injuring hundreds more as it tore roads apart and felled buildings.
I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. First, in the Philippines, 7 members of a Philippine Dragon Boat team were killed Wednesday when their boat capsized off the island of Boracay as they were training for an international race, according to rescuers and colleagues. Large waves swamped and overturned the wooden boat of one of the world's most famous tropical holiday resorts, killing 4 male and 3 female rowers at sunrise. There are many rocks in the area, so it's possible that they hit their head on them, according to local disaster officer Catherine Ong Fulgencio, explaining why they didn't survive even though they could swim. 14 other team members, including a Chinese and a Russian woman, were rescued and taken to hospital for treatment. The Filipino victims were training for the Kaohsiung City Cup scheduled for the southern Taiwanese city in November, according to team member Remedy Aquino, who wasn't aboard the boat. Dragon boat racing is a popular sport in the Philippines and many parts of Asia, where 20 paddlers sit 2 abreast atop a long wooden 39-foot boat sandwiched by a cox who steers the vessel from the rear and a drummer in front.
The Philippine mission to the United Nations on Thursday said the Philippine government condemns all acts of intimidation by non-state actors amid a UN report naming the Philippines as among the governments of 48 countries linked to cases of reprisals. Vice Consul Magela Christie U. Poa Diezmos of the Philippine mission to the UN was responding to a report that noted multiple individuals in the Philippines who decried being targets of harassment, surveillance, and stigmatization for previous inclusion in a February 2018 Department of Justice petition, which sought to declare the Communist Party of the Philippines and the New People's Army CPP-NPA as terrorist organizations. Speaking during an interactive dialogue with the Advisory Committee and UN Assistant Secretary General for Human Rights Andrew Gilmore and the 42nd session of the UN Human Rights Council, Poa Diezmos said the Philippine government believes that the reports taken up by the Council should be guided by the highest level of objectivity, professionalism, and due diligence.
The Philippines notes the report and welcomes the efforts to provide states concerned sufficient time to respond to the issues in the draft. We believe that the reports taken up by the Council should be guided by the highest level of objectivity, professionalism, and due diligence. Maintaining high standards to ensure that facts, not falsities, are the basis of our discourse is crucial to preserve the integrity and credibility of the Council in the age of fake news. The Philippines condemns all acts of intimidation and reprisals committed by governments and non-state actors. We draw attention to the need for the international community to exercise due diligence in engaging parties who have abused the good faith of the UN system, masquerading as human rights defenders while actively carrying out terrorism and crime. Evidence was presented on how the CPP-NPA, a terrorist group, and its front organizations have perpetrated systematic atrocities among its followers and indigenous communities in the Philippines for decades. The report of the SRSG on children in armed conflict corroborates this information. May we ask ASG Gilmore for his views on best practices to address intimidations and reprisals committed by non-state actors and how to assist states in strengthening their capacities as duty bearers in this regard. Mr. President, we welcome the work of the OHCHR to launch consultation mechanisms within the UN system, as well as with intergovernmental regional organizations and multilateral development banks on reprisals with a view to strengthening accountability mechanisms in these institutions. We request the Secretary General to keep the Council apprised of progress of these efforts. Finally, we believe that the Council needs a more considered debate on concerns raised on the use of national security arguments and counterterrorism to justify reprisals. Our conversation should be informed by the fact that terrorism is a grave matter whose full repercussions on the human rights of individuals and communities are understood only by those who have suffered and continue to suffer from it. Thank you, Mr. President.
A very rare and historic move from Washington earlier today. Top Democrat and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced the opening of a formal impeachment inquiry into President Donald Trump, saying he betrayed his oath of office by seeking help from a foreign power to hurt his Democratic rival Joe Biden. Now this comes as President Trump acknowledged he brought up Joe Biden on a phone call with Ukraine's new president, Volodymyr Zelensky, and just today talking about why hundreds of billions of dollars in U.S. military aid to Ukraine was being held back.
Today, I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry. I'm directing our 6 committees to proceed with their investigations under that umbrella of impeachment inquiry. The President must be held accountable. No one is above the law.
The ramped-up push for impeachment was fueled by a scandal over Trump's reported attempt to pressure the incoming president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, to open a corruption investigation into Biden and Biden's son Hunter, who had done business in the Eastern European country. Triggering the confrontation was an as yet secret whistleblower complaint reportedly centered on Trump's phone call July 25 with Zelensky. Just a few hours later, Nancy Pelosi made her position crystal clear.
This week, the President has admitted to asking the President of Ukraine to take actions which would benefit him politically. The actions of the Trump presidency revealed the dishonorable fact of the President's betrayal of his oath of office, betrayal of our national security, and betrayal of the integrity of our elections. For the past several months, we have been investigating in our committees and litigating in the courts, so the House can gather all the relevant facts and consider whether to exercise its full Article I powers, including a constitutional power of the utmost gravity, approval of articles of impeachment. Last Tuesday, we observed the anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution on September 17th. Sadly, on that day, the Intelligence Community Inspector General formally notified the Congress that the administration was forbidding him from turning over a whistleblower complaint on Constitution Day. This is a violation of law.
Congress has been informed by the Inspector General of the intelligence community in writing that the Trump administration is preventing that complaint from being sent to the relevant committees in Congress. Those are the facts, Madam President. The situation they describe is unacceptable.
Given the progress the committee was making, I don't believe this made-for-TV moment was actually necessary. I would have preferred the committee be allowed to do its work in a quiet, methodical manner. It doesn't serve the committee or its goals to litigate its business here on the floor or for the television cameras. Nevertheless, I agree that the DNI should make additional information available to the committee so it can evaluate the complaint consistent with the statute and other procedures that exist to safeguard classified and sensitive information.
Representatives, and I will say that
Seeking to head off the looming impeachment
so I think that
threat, President Trump announced Tuesday he would release the transcript of the call.
Perfect. The call that wasn't perfect, and she's talking impeachment. So I think that, and by the way, she hasn't even seen the phone call. The phone call was perfect. The call that wasn't perfect and the words that weren't perfect were Joe Biden with respect to his son. And his son takes away millions of dollars out of Ukraine and millions of dollars out of China. And you don't talk about that. It's a real disgrace. I can't even believe it. It's true. How can you do this and you haven't even seen the phone call? The whistleblower, they say, was second hand or third hand. And it was reported, that I have no idea who the whistleblower is. I guess I could find out. Maybe I couldn't find out. But they say it was a very partisan person, the whistleblower. But it was second or third hand. Never heard the call. We have the whole transcript of the call, which will be released tomorrow, and comments will be put with respect. It was a perfect call. There was no quid pro quo, unlike Biden. There was no nothing. It was a perfect call, a very nice call. And in fact, I thought this was very nice. Ukraine just came out and made a very good statement. It was a very good call. There was no pressure put on them whatsoever.
Meanwhile, Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden himself, a former vice president who had until now held off from calling impeachment, fired back.
The Congress does not, the President does. Congress, in my view, should demand the information it has a legal right to receive. If the Congress does not, if the President does not comply with such a request from the Congress, if he continues to obstruct Congress and flout the law, Donald Trump will leave Congress, in my view, no choice but to initiate impeachment. That would be a tragedy, but a tragedy of his own making. We have a president who believes there is no limit to his power. We have a president who believes he can do anything and get away with it. We have a president who believes he's above the law. Pursuing the leader of another nation to investigate a political opponent to help win his election is not the conduct of an American president.
Meanwhile, Republican and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy tells reporters that Speaker Nancy Pelosi cannot decide unilaterally what happens in Congress after she announced the launch of the formal impeachment inquiry against the president.
They have been Speaker Pelosi happens to be the Speaker of this House, but she does not speak for America when it comes to this issue. She cannot decide unilaterally what happens here. They have been investigating this president before he even got elected. They have voted 3 times on impeachment on this floor. Twice they voted before one word of the Mueller report came back. Our job is to legislate, not to continue to investigate something in the back when you cannot find any reason to impeach this president. This election is over. I realize 2016 did not turn out the way Speaker Pelosi wanted it to happen. But she cannot change the laws of this Congress. She cannot unilaterally decide we're in an impeachment inquiry. What she said today made no difference of what's been going on.
I think if I were Speaker Pelosi, I would have waited until the President has released the transcript. He said he's going to release the full transcript, unredacted. I think I'd have waited to see that and read it to see exactly what it says before I went out there with a call for investigating for impeachment. I think she's a bit ahead of her skis, but let's see what the transcript says. Let's hear what the whistleblower has to say. And those 2 pieces of information, I think, would be most helpful to deciding what the right course is going forward.
Just as progressive members have been pushing on impeachment, we also have had more conservative members of the caucus that have been cautious, but have really jumped off the sidelines in this really, this disturbing development. And so just as we wouldn't have been able to do it without more conservative members of the caucus, I think it also took the progressive members of the caucus as well to bring us to this juncture together.
This is embarrassing that Speaker Pelosi continues this witch hunt for impeachment. They were hanging everything on the Mueller report showing something. It was clear there was no collusion, and they should have given it up then, but they can't let it go. They want to continue this witch hunt of trying to impeach the president because they don't agree with the results of the 2016 election.
I think House Democrats have got impeachment fever, and the only cure is going to be re-electing the president in the 2020 election. And, in the last endeavor that we went through here, Democrats took 22 months. Here, we barely saw them take 22 hours before launching off on presidential harassment.
Top U.S. Democrat Nancy Pelosi Tuesday announced the opening of a formal impeachment inquiry into President Donald Trump, saying he betrayed his oath of office by seeking help from a foreign power to hurt his Democratic rival Joe Biden. Here's how the impeachment process goes.
Impeachment is a rarely used tool to oust a sitting U.S. president from power. The two-step process begins if lawmakers consider a president is guilty of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors according to the U.S. Constitution. The initial vote takes place in the House of Representatives, and a simple majority is needed. In the event of impeachment, the case then moves to the Senate for an impeachment trial. A two-thirds majority is needed for conviction in the 100-member chamber. If that happens, the president is automatically removed from office with no possibility for appeal. Although no US president has ever been ousted from office under impeachment proceedings, two were impeached by the House of Representatives but ultimately acquitted in the Senate. Andrew Johnson in 1868 and Bill Clinton in 1998. Richard Nixon resigned in 1974 to avoid certain impeachment by Congress over the Watergate scandal. Any federal official suspected of serious wrongdoing can be prosecuted by Congress under the impeachment process.
Back to the United Nations. As the Climate Action Summit began at the UN headquarters in New York on Monday, UN weather experts warned about the glaring and growing gap between agreed targets to tackle global warming and the actual reality. Citing the latest data on key climate indicators from the planet's likely record temperature rise in the last 5 years, currently 1.1 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, the amount of sea ice melt and the number of deadly heat waves, as well as the increase in greenhouse gas emissions. The World Meteorological Organization said that there was clear evidence that human influence was to blame.
The news is that most of the extreme events related to heat have now been identified as being influenced by anthropogenic human influence. One of the studies actually showed that the heat wave which occurred in Japan, July 2018, which was associated with more than 100 lives lost, was almost impossible to happen without human influence.
Not only are these statistics alarming, they dispel any false sense of security that maybe will muddle through this.
According to a new report from the world's leading climate science organizations, the planet is on track to post the warmest 5-year average temperatures on record. In addition, sea ice melt is increasing along with the number of deadly heat waves as well as rising greenhouse gas emissions.
Some of the regions have recorded their warmest periods, such as most of Western United States, including Alaska. Southern America is particular in the eastern part, the most of Europe and northern of Eurasia, Middle East, Australia, and part of southern Africa. While the Arctic, we have seen the downtrend of sea ice extent for many years. In the Antarctic, we have just started seeing that as well since 2016. The sea level rise is accelerating. It's not only increasing, but it is accelerating.
The current nationally determined contributions submitted by the parties to the Paris Agreement would have to be 3 times as ambitious as they currently are to meet the 2-degree target, and 5 times as ambitious as they currently are to meet the 1.5-degree target. And that assumes, of course, that these pledges are actually implemented. Most of the emissions are coming from fossil fuel combustion and from making cement. So while it's not enough simply to try to reduce the emissions from those sources, those are 2 areas, obviously, which need quick attention.
Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro said it was a lie that the Amazon was being devastated by fire and accused countries critical of him of having a colonialist spirit. Speaking first at this year's UN General Assembly, the far-right leader also heaped praise on his American counterpart Donald Trump for respecting his country's sovereignty. The speech came a week after a Human Rights Watch report that accused Bolsonaro of giving a green light to illegal loggers and failing to protect those defending the world's largest rainforest.
We all know that all countries have problems, yet the sensationalist attacks that we have suffered coming from a large part of the international media due to the fire outbreaks in the Amazonian region have aroused our patriotic sentiment. It is a fallacy to say that the Amazon is the heritage of humankind, and a misconception as confirmed by scientists to say that our Amazonian forests are the lungs of the world. Using and resorting to these fallacies, certain countries, instead of helping, embarked on the media lies and behaved in a disrespectful manner and with a colonialist spirit. They even called into question that which we hold as the most sacred value, our sovereignty. One of these countries during a recent G7 meetings dared suggest applying sanctions to Brazil without even consulting with or hearing Brazil. I thank those countries that did not accept to go ahead with this absurd proposal. In particular, I thank President Donald Trump, who very aptly summarized the spirit that should prevail among United Nations member countries, i.e. respect for the freedom and the sovereignty of each of us as nations. Could not want to be poor, large landholders sitting on rich lands. They do not. Especially sitting on the world's richest lands. That is precisely the case of the Yanomami Reserve and the Raposa Serra do Sol Reserve. These reserves are home to vast deposits of gold, diamond, uranium, niobium, and rare earths. This goes to show clearly that those who attack us are not at all concerned about indigenous as human beings, but rather they're concerned more about the mineral riches and the biodiversity that exists in these areas.
Official figures do not back Bolsonaro's account that the fires are under control. Amazon deforestation nearly doubled in the first 8 months of this year compared with the same period in 2018 to 6,404 square kilometers, or that's 2,472 square miles, more than twice the size of Luxembourg. The acceleration in deforestation has been blamed for the sharp increase in fires this year, which official figures show have reached nearly 124 as land is cleared and burned to make way for cattle grazing or crops. A decrease in rain and a recent heat wave together with strong winds are also factors in the blazes.
Addressing the United Nations General Assembly, U.S. President Trump said the future doesn't belong to globalists, but the future belongs to patriots. Delivering his remarks, the U.S. President noted that wise leaders always put the goods of their own people and their own country first. Take a look.
Wise leaders always put the good of their own people and their own country first. The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots. The future belongs to sovereign and independent nations who protect their citizens, respect their neighbors, and honor the differences that make each country special and unique.
On trade, the United States President criticized China's trade practice.
The second largest economy in the world should not be permitted to declare itself a developing country in order to game the system at others' expense. For years, these abuses were tolerated, ignored, or even encouraged. Globalism exerted a religious pull over past leaders, causing them to ignore their own national interests. But as far as America is concerned, those days are over. The world fully expects that the Chinese
Also noted that how China chooses to handle the situation in Hong Kong will say a great deal of its role in the world in the future.
to protect Hong Kong. The world fully expects that the Chinese government will honor its binding treaty made with the British and registered with the United Nations, in which China commits to protect Hong Kong's freedom, legal system, and democratic ways of life. How China chooses to handle the situation will say a great deal about its role in the world in the future. We are all counting on President Xi as a great leader.
Meanwhile, President Trump said that sanctions on Iran would be further increased unless it halts its fanatical weapons drive and aggression in the Middle East.
All nations have a duty to act. No responsible government should subsidize Iran's bloodlust. As long as Iran's menacing behavior continues, sanctions will not be lifted. They will be tightened. Iran's leaders will have turned a proud nation into just another cautionary tale of what happens when a ruling class abandons its people and embarks on a crusade for personal power and riches.
Meanwhile, the UN Secretary General raised concerns that the war of words between China and the United States could develop into something much more serious.
And at this time of transition and dysfunction in global power relations, there is a new risk looming on the horizon that may not yet be large, but it is real. I fear the possibility of a great fracture, the world splitting in two, with the two largest economies on Earth creating two separate and competing worlds, which with their own dominant currency, trade and financial rules, their own internet and artificial intelligence capacities, and their own zero-sum geopolitical and military strategies. We must do everything possible to avert the great fracture and maintain a universal system, a universal economy with universal respect for international law, a multipolar world with strong multilateral institutions.
Eagle News will be right back. Stay tuned.
Tinatawagan ng mga persons with disability at senior citizens. Nais nyo ba na makasiguro na makabubuto kayo sa Accessible Public Place o EPP? Kung ngayon, inayanan kayo na mag-update ng inyong record sa pamamagitan ng pagpilat ng Supplementary Data Form.
Sa pamamagitan ng Supplementary Data Form, maipapaalam ninyo ang inyong disability at kinakailangang tulong sa araw ng eleksyon. Dito nyo rin maipahahayag kung nais ninyong bumoto sa accessible polling place.
Kaya kung nais ninyong maging accessible ang inyong pagboto sa araw ng eleksyon, mag-update na kayo ngayong registration period.
Pumunta lang sa opisina ng election officer sa inyong lugar mula Lunes hanggang Sabado o sa mga satellite registration.
Tungkulin ng MTRC.
Focus. Monday to Friday, 2 to 2:30 p.m.
Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump pledges an additional $25 million to protect religious freedom around the world during a conference on religious freedom at the United Nations General Assembly. President Trump also announced the U.S. is forming a coalition of business leaders to protect religious freedom in the workplace and encourages other countries to increase punishment for crimes against religious communities. Take a look.
Population live in countries where religious liberty is threatened, founded on the principle that our rights do not come from. We're also urging every nation to increase the prosecution and punishment of crimes against religious communities. There can be no greater crime than that. Today, the Trump administration will dedicate an additional $25 million to protect religious freedom and religious sites and relics. The United States is forming a coalition of U.S. businesses for the protection of religious freedom. This is the first time this has been done. This initiative will encourage the private sector to protect people of all faiths in the workplace.
2 days after a climate summit failed to deliver game-changing pledges to slash carbon emissions, the United Nations warned Wednesday that global warming is devastating oceans and Earth's frozen spaces in ways that directly threaten a large slice of humanity. Crumbling ice sheets, rising seas, melting glaciers, ocean dead zones, toxic algae blooms, a raft of impacts on sea and ice are decimating fish stocks, destroying renewable sources of fresh water, and incubating superstorms that will ravage some megacities every year, according to a landmark assessment approved by the 195-nation intergovernmental panel on climate change. Some of these impacts are irreversible. The report, a digest of 7,000 peer-reviewed studies, is a sobering reminder that record greenhouse gas emissions, mostly from burning fossil fuels, are driving the planet towards a hothouse climate our species could find intolerable. But it also raises more clearly than ever before a red flag on the need to confront changes that can no longer be averted. For some island nations and coastal cities, that will almost certainly mean finding new places to call home. The underlying 900-page scientific report is the fourth such UN tome in less than a year, with others focused on a 1.5 Celsius cap on global warming, the decline of biodiversity, as well as land use and the global food system.
The ocean and cryosphere, the frozen parts of the planet, might feel very remote to some people, but they impact all of us for weather, climate, food and water, for energy, trade and transport, for health and well-being, for culture and identity. The ocean and the cryosphere are critical for all life on Earth. All this report has shown that if greenhouse gas emissions continue to increase, global warming will drastically alter the ocean and the cryosphere. However, if we reduce emissions sharply, consequences for people and their livelihoods will still be challenging, but they will be potentially more manageable for those who are most vulnerable. The report reveals the benefits of ambitious and effective adaptation for sustainable development. Conversely, there may be escalating costs and risks associated with delay.
And it documents the ways in which the ocean has been acting like a sponge, absorbing carbon dioxide and heat to regulate the temperature. But it can't keep up. Taken together, these changes show that the world's ocean and cryosphere have been taking the heat for climate change for decades. The consequences for nature and humanity are sweeping and severe. This report highlights also the urgency of timely, ambitious, coordinated, and enduring action. What is at stake is the health of ecosystems, wildlife, and importantly, the world we leave for our children.
Is to give right from our first special report on 1.5 and the land and this oceans and cryosphere report, that is that we are in the race between two factors. One is the human ecosystem's capacity to adapt, and the other one is the speed of impact of climate change. And this report, as well as the land report, indicates that we may be losing in this race. And therefore, the message is that right from the first special report on 1.5, we need to take immediate and drastic action to cut emissions right now, and especially right from the next year, if we want to achieve this carbon neutrality in the mid of this century. And that is the consistent message we found throughout our three special reports.
Rescue workers battled to reach people affected by a shallow earthquake that rocked northeast Pakistan a day earlier, killing at least 25 people and injuring hundreds more as it tore roads apart and felled buildings. Take a look. The Pakistan military continued to lead the search and rescue operations as day broke, with fears growing that the death toll may jump again. The epicenter of the 5.2 magnitude quake was near the Kashmiri city of Mirpur, roughly 20 kilometers north of Jhelum in agricultural Punjab province, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. Mirpur, a city known for its palatial houses, has strong ties to Britain, with the majority of its 450,000 residents carrying both British and Pakistani passports. Rescue operations continued through the night in the area as local hospitals swelled with many patients suffering from multiple fractures. Near Mirpur, meanwhile, roads were completely destroyed and vehicles overturned by the tremors, while bridges, mobile phone towers, and electricity poles were also badly damaged in the melee. The quake sent people in Lahore and Islamabad running into the streets, while tremors were also felt as far as New Delhi. The Press Trust of India reported that panicking people rushed out of their homes and offices in several places, including in Rajasthan, Punjab, and Haryana. Many residents in the area stayed outside their homes overnight for fear of more aftershocks. Pakistan straddles part of the boundary where the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates meet, making the country susceptible to earthquakes.
Survivors received treatment in a hospital in the Kashmir city of Mirpur after a shallow earthquake rocked northeast Pakistan. Here's more.
बराबर नहीं गई थी तो दीवार हम सबके ऊपर गिरी थी 20 बच्चों के ऊपर दीवार गिरी साहब ने बाकी लड़कियां उठाया।
ये मैं जा रही थी बाहर तो झटके से गिरी हूँ, एक यकदम झटका आया है, मैं उससे गिरी हूँ नीचे, ऊपर से दीवार गिर गई है। फिर उसके बाद मुझे नहीं पता क्या हुआ है, बेहोश हो गई थी, फिर मुझे नहीं पता क्या हुआ है।
We'll be back with more news right after this break.
Here we are in New Westminster, British Columbia, with what the Guinness World Record has honored as the world's tallest tin soldier. Tune in to Digital Nest every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 only on Net 25. My name is Archie Roasted TV Dad, your EBC correspondent, and I'm one with 25.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Asian stock markets fell Wednesday after U.S. Democrats launched formal impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump and on renewed trade fears as the president adopted a hard line on China. In a dramatic move, House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi announced a formal impeachment inquiry after U.S. markets closed. Democrats accused Trump of abuse of power in a reported attempt to pressure the newly installed president of Ukraine to open a corruption investigation into his lead challenger for the White House, Joe Biden, and Biden's son, Hunter. Trump denounced the inquiry as witch hunt garbage. Tokyo closed down 0.4% and Shanghai slipped 1.0%, while Hong Kong ended 1.3% lower. Seoul also fell 1.3% and Taiwan gave up 0.4%, while Singapore was trading 1.1% lower and Mumbai was down 1.2%. European markets also slid at the open, with London and Frankfurt both down 0.5%, while Paris shed 0.6%. Oil prices took a hit, with WTI off 0.9% and Brent down 1.1%, following Trump's tough talk on China and after data indicating a buildup in U.S. crude inventories.
A futuristic new airport in Beijing, which is expected to become one of the busiest in the world, was opened by President Xi Jinping on Wednesday. Take a look. President Xi declared the starfish-shaped airport open in brief remarks at a ceremony inside the huge terminal, days before the country holds a grand celebration to mark 70 years of communist rule. Located 46 kilometers south of Tiananmen Square, the Beijing Daxing International Airport will operate at full capacity in 2040, with 8 runways and the potential to receive 100 million passengers per year. Both foreign and domestic carriers have announced plans to move their operations to the new airport. At 700,000 square meters, about the size of 100 football pitches, the new structure will be one of the world's largest airport terminals. The building was designed by Iraqi-British architect Zaha Hadid, who died in 2016. Inside, it stands out for its flowing, curved lines and use of natural light that filters down to the lowest levels of the building through openings on the roof. Underneath the terminal is a train station and metro line that will allow travelers to reach the city center in 20 minutes. The project cost 120 billion yuan or $17.5 billion or 400 billion yuan if rail and road links are included.
Mexico is bracing for a very powerful impact from the collapse of British travel firm Thomas Cook, as several hundred tourists gather at the Cancun airport looking for a way home. Here's more.
Because they would have been blocked off by the City Division Authority already. They blocked seats straight away.
We've experienced really is obviously not being really told anything and having to find out everything ourselves. So it's been a bit chaotic. It's been a bit chaotic in that sense, but in general, everything we were expecting this to happen, so it wasn't much of a shock.
Bahrain Tourism and Exhibitions Authority is hosting a wide range of events and activities to celebrate Saudi Arabia's 89th National Day. Our ABC correspondent Lorlyn Kalimliam reports.
We are here right now at the Avenues, Bahrain, one of the landmark stations for the 5-day celebration of Saudi Arabia's National Day, offered by the Tourism Authority of Bahrain. Visitors, walk-in mall goers, and of course Saudi nationals will be enjoying the Banu Show, a traditional handmade boat, which symbolizes the unity of the two countries. Fireworks display will be there as well, and royal musical band performances. In commemoration of Saudi Arabia's 89th National Day on 23rd September 2019, Bahrain Tourism and Exhibitions Authority is hosting a 5-day event in various tourist landmarks of the kingdom. Amongst others is the Avenues. This is to further promote the unity of the two brotherly countries, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, in addition to enhancing their bilateral relationship. This is according to Dr. Ali Foulad, Tourism Advisor. In line with this long celebration, Bahrain Tourism representative in Saudi Arabia has coordinated with several hotels and travel agencies in Bahrain to enjoy a variety of promotions and discounts for the Saudi nationals.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, ashkar.
I thank the custodian of the two holy mosques, the Crown Prince, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I wish all of us and the Islamic nation that every year will be good. Today we are celebrating our Saudi National Day in your lovely country, Bahrain. Both of us are one nation inside the GCC. I thank both countries and all GCC countries that they are all one nation. And between Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, there is no difference. Again, I wish all the Islamic nation the best.
According to BTEA, hosting this event is a long-term strategy to develop tourism sector and strengthen its position on a regional and international level under the slogan of Ours, Yours. Meanwhile, everybody goes near the bay to witness the display of fireworks, not minding the high humidity.
I enjoy the fireworks, and it's a unique place. It's very relaxing. So I encourage everyone to come here in the Avenue. It's good to know that these two countries, Saudi and Bahrain, they are both united they have a good relationship. That's why this is the outcome.
Everyone is invited to join this one-of-a-kind celebration of Saudi National Day here in Bahrain. So grab your chance while it lasts to absorb their traditional shows and personally experience their remarkable handicrafts, taste their delectable traditional food, and feel their soothing traditional music. This is Lorlin Kalimlim, your Eagle News correspondent from Bahrain, and I'm Juan with 25.
It's World Cleanup Day in Bahrain 2019. Clement Orhaliza, EBC Bahrain Bureau reports.
As part of the World Cleanup Day, Bahrain, in cooperation of the Capital Governorate under the patronage of Governor Sheikh Hisham bin Abdulrahman Al Khalifa and the other organizations, have launched an environmental awareness campaign by holding a massive cleanup drive in 12 beaches around the kingdom. Of the 12 beaches, Jufair Beach is where we are right now. Annually, the Kingdom of Bahrain joins the World Cleanup Day, encouraging its citizens to keep Bahrain's beaches free of waste. Today, a massive cleaning campaign is being held in Bahrain's 12 beaches: Karbabad, Karana, Nurana, Jid al-Hajj, Janusan, Al-Jasra, Demistan, Karzakan, Malkiya, Water Garden City, Coast Guard Beach, and Jufair Beach. According to Cleanup Bahrain co-founder and president Mr. Ali Al-Qasir, environmental awareness will not stop in Bahrain because it takes a long-term plan to take charge. Furthermore, workshops are also being conducted in schools and companies. A diverse group of individuals consisting of different organizations are gathered here in Jufair Beach, all sharing the same ideal of cleaning up the shores of Bahrain. Everyone from schools, government organizations, and even children are here helping each other out to fulfill the same goal.
Ako'y nagagalak bilang ang ambassador of the Philippines to Bahrain. Kasama ko dito, hindi lang mga taga-embassy, ba't iba-ibang grupo ng mga Pilipino. Isa kami sa mga pinakamalaking grupo dito ngayon, doing our share, helping our community, giving back to the community. Ito na ang aming pansamantalang bahay ngayon. Bahrain is our home now, so we want to make it clean and we want to make it beautiful for everyone. I'd like to congratulate the organizers, bringing people from all sorts, all fields, all nationalities coming together for a very good cause, no? And it is global, no? So, so in our own little way here, doing our part for Bahrain, and sana buong mundo, no? So maraming salamat din sa inyong support.
I am very happy about these people. They leave home and come to help part of the noise of Bahrain. So thanks all. I hope this one not the end. I want like every month, to continue, and every month you make same this one and everywhere in the Bahrain. Thank you all.
It's a really great opportunity and activity for everyone, and also, as you can see, the community in here that participated is quite diverse, so it's a great feeling that you can help in the environment, not just in Bahrain, but I think it's a good idea if everyone in the world will be able to do this, and it's just a really a great opportunity to be a part of it.
Meanwhile, as per Capital Governorate Sheikh Hisham bin Abdulrahman Al Khalifa, supporting this initiative is part of the continued program of the Capital Governorate under 2014 Green Capital Program, which aims to improve the environmental quality of such areas.
The Capital Government, we're happy today to host this cleanup celebrating the World Cleanup Day, and we are happy that there's a lot of participants today from the community and expats and local people. And this is what we're celebrating, to keep our country and government clean.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
This awareness aims not only to clean the beaches, but also raise the people's awareness about the importance of keeping the water safe and clean for the benefit of the future generations. This initiative in preserving Mother Nature is indeed commendable. This is Clem Orhaliza, your Eagle News correspondent from Bahrain, and I'm one with 25.
Brandon Sutter's performance lifted the Vancouver Canucks to a 4-2 preseason victory over the Edmonton Oilers. Here's Anthony Sevilla for the report.
Brandon Sutter's stellar performance helped the Vancouver Canucks defeat the Edmonton Oilers 4-2 Tuesday night at Rogers Arena. Making his preseason debut, Sutter ended the game as the leading scorer with 2 goals for the night. He explained how he felt in his return to the ice and the Canucks' focus heading into the regular season.
Tired, yeah, tired, very tired. Everyone's exhausted. I think it's been tough. The first 3 days were exhausting, so guys are pretty sore, and yeah, it's just going to take a few weeks here to get used to it again. And it's a nice playing a game and kind of getting the contact going again, but definitely a little sore. But I think after a couple days we'll recover and feel better. We're still kind of scrambling a bit. It's still the focus has kind of been conditioning and getting our heart rates up a bit, less system stuff. So we'll kind of break away after the preseason here.
The reigning Calder Trophy winner Elias Pettersson continued to impress everyone in his first game back this season, finishing the game with a goal and 2 shots on net despite being unhappy with his performance.
I wasn't playing that good today. I lost too many pucks, too many turnovers, wasn't good in the face-off circle, but that's what preseason is for, to get used to hockey games again, so take it game by game and build on this.
Canucks head coach Travis Green thought otherwise.
Man, it was picture perfect in my eyes. I think Petey pressed a little bit, but that's all right. He got us a big goal, that's for sure. So there's always things that you learn, whether it's exhibition or regular season, and he's still a young guy and learning as he goes too.
This marked the first game back for many key players for both Vancouver and Edmonton. And with the end of training camp and preseason schedule just on the way, players will be looking to get back into playing form. Many players have already been sent back down to their minor league affiliates or to their junior clubs. But both coaching staffs will have a tough few weeks ahead, deciding on their final roster. The preseason continues as the Vancouver Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers play the second of a home-and-home at Rogers Place in Edmonton. Anthony Sevilla, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Alma Angeles, and we're 1 with 25.